Good news for the homebound population in Arlington, as local health officials are set to begin administering COVID-19 vaccines right in your own home. Net zero by 2050 in Arlington is no longer just a goal. Now there's an action plan for how to get there. With Easter Sunday upon us, we look at how some houses of worship plan to celebrate the holiday this time around, and how you can too. That and more on ACMi News.
From McLennan Park to Spy Pond, from Poets Corner to the Mystic River, we have Arlington covered. We're your neighbors, a friend you can turn to. This is ACMi News.
Hello Arlington and welcome to ACMi News. I'm In-young Kim. Vaccine distribution has accelerated, but the pandemic is still far from over, as infection rates throughout the nation are again on the rise, especially here in New England. We still need to be cautious, even as we celebrate Passover and Easter. Effective Monday, March 29th, the Commonwealth kicked off a statewide initiative to deliver and administer vaccines to homebound residents. However, Arlington's Board of Health has chosen to manage its own homebound vaccination program. Senior news producer Anim Osmani has the story.
So in Massachusetts, we have 351 cities and towns. 190 communities are actually doing the program on their own. Here in Arlington, we feel that it is our duty to serve our community. We have the capacity. We have the ability and the staff and the volunteers that are able and ready to be dispatched to do this work. So we've really just been able to shift our focus to providing this service to our highest risk residents, in the homes.
In-home vaccinations are available for people who are not able to leave their homes and go to a vaccination site. The state defines homebound people by the following criteria: individuals who have considerable difficulty and/or require significant support to leave the home for medical appointments, require ambulance or two-person assistance to leave the home, or are not able to leave the home for medical appointments under normal circumstances. Arlington residents who meet one of these eligibility requirements, regardless of age, can make appointments by calling Arlington's Council on Aging. Director of Health and Human Services, Christine Bongiorno, lays out the town's homebound vaccination operations.
And we have been assembling our list. So we do vaccinations in the community every year for the flu vaccination program. So we obviously built off of that list, the list of persons we would be vaccinating for COVID. And we also then were able to, through the state program, identify additional people that were in need of support. So we've actually come across a lot of people in our community. So we have up to 100 now that are on our list that will be going out next week once we receive the vaccine to vaccinate. And there are people under 60 on that list. People that have severe issues that really prevent them from leaving their home and to getting to any mass vaccination site.
The town will utilize staff and the nurses within their team, as well as collaborating with the Arlington Fire Department, EMT services, and other departments to deliver and administer the vaccines at your home.
So in our office in Arlington, we have a health and human services model. So we work as a team with the Council on Aging, the Health Department, Veteran Services, and our counseling center. And so we have a lot of connections with our community members that are most in need and at risk. So all of the staff in those departments will be participating as well.
Scheduling an in-house vaccination appointment for COVID-19 is easier than most people think. Here's Christine Bongiorno with a simple explanation of how to schedule an appointment.
There's really no application process. We, if someone identifies as someone that's a homebound resident, we go through the 3 categories with them on the phone just to ensure that we're screening people. But there's really no application. They don't need to approve with forms or anything like that. We don't want to make this difficult for people.
For those already on the list for an in-home vaccination appointment and who have been waiting for a number of months to receive their shot, Christine Bongiorno says the shipment of vaccines is arriving in the first week of April. When that happens, the vaccinations will start immediately. So we're looking at around Wednesday, April 7th to go full throttle, and the speed is really dependent on the state's supplies and allocation of resources. The COVID vaccines will be the Johnson & Johnson version, and the homebound program will run for as long as it needs to. For ACMi News, I'm Anim Osmani.
Thank you, Anim. And just a reminder, if you are a homebound resident and want to schedule an in-home vaccination appointment, you can call the Arlington Council on Aging at 781-316-3400. Elections are fast approaching. Ani Mosmani is here in the studio to give a quick overview of who's running for the town's office and how you can find more information. Anim?
Thank you, In Young. With Candidates Night taking place on Wednesday, March 31st, we are now in the final stages of Election 2021 in Arlington. With that in mind, we'd like to point you to the resources available on ACMi to find out more about both the candidates and the pressing issues involved in this year's election. At this point, ACMi has held debates in the races for Select Board and the Board of Assessors, and these are currently airing on our government channel. You can also access them on our various online platforms. Candidates Night is available on ACMi's Facebook and YouTube pages and also airs on our government channel regularly throughout the week. The contested races in Arlington this year include Select Board, Board of Assessors, and Housing Authority. For the Select Board, 3 candidates, Eric Helmuth, Jennifer Seuss, and John Hurd, are vying for 2 open seats. Over at the Board of Assessors, 3 candidates are running for a single seat with a 3-year term. These candidates are Kevin Feeney, Guillermo Hamlet, and Philip Lonis. The Housing Authority is a face-off between Nicholas Metropolis and Kelda Fontenot. A seat on the Housing Authority has a 5-year term. The school committee race is uncontested, so it appears that incumbents Jane Morgan and Jeff Thielman will continue their work on the committee for another 3 years. Candidate profiles can be found on a number of local resources, including yourarlington.com, the Arlington Advocate, the League of Women Voters, and of course, acmi.tv. Individual candidates also have materials you can access on their campaign websites. As for voting for your town meeting representatives, visit arlingtonma.gov/elections and there will be a link for you to click on to learn who is running in your precinct. Town elections are on April 10th and polls will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The firm deadline for requesting a mail-in ballot is Tuesday, April 6th at 5 p.m. You can find more information about town elections and the voting process at arlingtonma.gov/elections or contact the town clerk's office. For ACMi News, I'm Ani Mosmani. In Young, back to you.
From April 5th to April 9th, the town will celebrate National Community Development Week. Featured events will highlight how funds from community development block grants support community programs and assistance. Jennifer Raitt spoke with ACMi News Director James Milan about Arlington's version of Community Development Week.
We're really looking forward to that. We unfortunately didn't get a chance to really celebrate it last year. We have in previous years, and it's really an opportunity to celebrate all of the work that we do related to the Community Development Block Grant Program, which is a program that, of course, the town has had in place since 1974, since its inception, actually, and we've channeled more than $50 million through the community, supporting community development initiatives over all of those years. Of course, it's a lot of years, and on average, we've received about $1.2 million annually through the federal government, with a couple of instances where we received additional funds, including this past year, as everybody knows, with the CARES Act funding, we received almost an additional $1 million to help families who were in need and businesses that were in need related to COVID and suffering from the impact of the pandemic. So the community has really done some amazing work over so many years with CDBG funds. This past year, though, we really wanted to take a step back and really look at a couple of particular issues over this past year where Arlington has really stepped up. And there's a couple of organizations that are very focused on issues around food insecurity and stability. And so we are planning a panel that's taking place on Thursday, April 8th at 5 p.m., which will include the executive director of Arlington Eats, as well as the person who is the director of operations and community partnerships at FoodLink, and myself, and Mallory Sullivan, who's the CDBG administrator for the town, who will be talking about food insecurity and how that changed over this past year and what Arlington has done to be responsive to that issue now and, of course, moving forward. I think people have a general sense of what the program does, but we really want to make sure that we spend the week illustrating the true impact that the funding source has had on the community, which includes leveraging a lot of additional dollars and support towards local programming. For every $1 we spend on CDBG, another $4 is actually leveraged. So it's really, it's a really profound impact on the various social service programs, affordable housing programs, and public facilities programs that we operate in town.
You'll find the full conversation from this week's DCPD update on the ACMi News YouTube page. The pandemic has been difficult for all of us, but many Arlingtonians have been stepping up to help the community. The owner of Marshall Salon, Michelle Casey, wanted to find a way to honor these everyday heroes. ACMi News intern Ella Ward tells us about how it has gone.
Michelle Casey, owner of Marshall Salon, recently heard a beautiful story from her daughter, who was working as a nurse during the pandemic.
And she said, "Mom, this young girl comes in and volunteers her time when a patient is getting toward the end of their life. They call her and she comes in and she sits with the patient, holds their hand, and is just a spiritual support."
After hearing this young woman's story, she wanted to give back in some way.
What I did was I gave her a gift certificate and some products as a thank you for being so nice.
This inspired her to reward the many other everyday heroes that have emerged during the pandemic.
I would love to create a contest and open it up to anyone. So it didn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a teacher or a medical professional. It could be anyone.
The prizes include gift cards and products from her salon. But what is an everyday hero?
That they're taking time out of their day to help someone else or to make this a better world. And I think that if we had more everyday heroes, we would be living in an even better place than what we live in right now.
She has been moved by the stories she's read so far.
You can feel the compassion coming through when I've read some of the other stories, and it's nice to see.
She expressed love for her team, who were more than willing to help out with the contest.
Well, my stylists were, thrilled that I was doing something to give back to the community. I absolutely love Arlington. I love being part of the community. So anything that I can do to, bolster someone's spirits is what I want to do.
She feels that the good-doing spirit of Arlington will continue even after the pandemic.
Quite frankly, I feel there's a lot of love in the town of Arlington.
Following the overwhelming response from the contest, Michelle said she is planning on running another sometime in June.
My staff is so excited. My team is so excited about doing this that they all want to offer a service. So I think that's pretty wonderful. So I'm hoping to be able to offer this again in the June timeframe.
For ACMi News, I'm Ella Ward.
The contest closed on March 31st, and the winners will be announced early this month. Arlington is aiming to make its carbon footprint reach net zero by 2050. ACMi News Director James Milan spoke with Planning Director Jennifer Rates and Energy Manager Ken Pruitt about the Net Zero Action Plan roadmap, a monumental collaborative effort. Here is a snippet from their wide-ranging conversation.
And by 2005, Arlington actually adopted its first climate action plan, which was dubbed the Arlington Sustainability Action Plan, which, by the way, is ASAP, which is a really cool acronym that I think everybody should emulate. That is really what we were trying to do back in 2005, which is to urgently address issues of climate resiliency and climate change and adaptation. And so, it really demonstrates that the community has long been thinking about this issue. And that plan actually had called for a 10% reduction in greenhouse gas pollution by 2010 and 20% by 2020, based on data that was available at that time. In 2010, we actually had a municipal pledge to meet 5 energy and climate commitments. And Arlington at that time was then designated a green community by the State Department of Energy Resources. And we've maintained that status since that time, netting millions of dollars to address energy efficiency goals in the community, particularly around town-owned properties. And additionally, maybe a little bit more recently, about 5 or 6 years ago, Arlington became a member of more sort of regional solutions, working through the Metropolitan Area Planning Council's Metro Mayors Coalition, of which Arlington is a member community. There have been actually a couple of different regional initiatives that Arlington plays a role on, very strategic for both the town's goals, but also to address regional issues that have an impact on this community. The town, really decided that there would be basically 3 big categories that we would focus on about buildings, transportation, and sort of the mobility network, and then of course clean energy. And that really Ken can speak to these in much greater detail, of course, but it's really 5 key things: making our homes and buildings much more efficient, electrifying heating and cooking, electrifying transportation, helping people to drive less by giving them better options in the community, and producing more renewable energy, potentially locally. So those 5 things are really in great detail outlined in the Net Zero Action Plan, which we've now got in place.
What I wanted to ask you, Ken, is Jenny mentioned 5 goals, and what struck me among those is the centrality of electrification to virtually all of the 5 goals.
The reason there's such a focus on electrification in the Net Zero Action Plan, and indeed in the climate bill that just passed the legislature, is that if we can convert all energy uses to powered by electricity, and then produce that electricity from renewable sources like solar and wind, right there you've achieved net zero greenhouse gas emissions. Essentially, we have to stop burning things, and that's how we stop sending carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. One of the top measures in the plan is to create an Electrify Arlington campaign and associated website, which will provide people with information they need in a variety of settings, and up to and including, we hope, volunteer energy coaches, which could sort of guide people through the process of determining what kind of electric car might be right for them, or whether their home is suitable for a heat pump, whether they need to insulate their home and air seal it first. There's a lot to think about, and it's somewhat different from the way we've all done things for a very long time. And so the plan isn't sort of just setting targets and mandates. It's really about helping people to do the right thing. And the Electrify Arlington campaign is going to be a key component to that.
The full Talk of the Town episode featuring this conversation is available on the ACMi website and is airing on our public channel. For Easter Sunday this year, many houses of worship will celebrate or hold Mass differently due to the pandemic. Some churches will remain closed and others will offer virtual Masses. One church, St. Agnes, located in Arlington Center, will hold Mass in person. ACMi News correspondent Isabel Liderst looks at the different approaches churches will take in celebrating Easter this year.
With Easter coming up this weekend, I spoke with some of Arlington's religious leaders to ask them why some churches will be opening their doors for Easter and why others will not.
Scott Morin, the Director of Evangelization for the Catholic Parishes of Arlington, is excited that St. Agnes and St. Camillus are among the few churches that will celebrate Easter in person. However, the church is taking safety precautions and following state guidelines to prevent the spread of COVID-19, requiring residents to pre-register on their website, cparl.org, or calling their direct phone line if they want to go in person.
Now we are very happy to have people back for Easter Sunday. We can only have 25 to 30% of our church filled at one time. We have 6-foot distancing and you have to wear masks the whole time. We're trying to keep all the airflow to a minimum from people, and then we open the windows to keep the airflow from outside.
The turnout for a typical Easter Sunday is over 2,000 people. Morin says this year will be a smaller celebration. Morin does have some worries about the logistics of holding an in-person Easter Mass and has some contingency plans implemented to accommodate for potential problems.
We also have our high school next door, Arlington Catholic, and we're going to be using that facility as an overflow. Really what's important, that we are able to welcome people back safely.
The First Parish Church in Arlington has been operating over Zoom for over a year now, and they will hold its Easter service over Zoom. Parish Minister Reverend Erica Richmond explained this decision.
We've decided that we would like to wait until we don't have to turn anyone away. So for us, that message of inclusion is really important. So we don't want to have to turn anyone away. We want to be able to really throw open our doors and say it's safe to be here and all are welcome.
The parish usually holds 2 services on Easter Sunday, but this year there will only be 1 service, broadcast over Zoom. The Zoom link can be found on their website, which is firstparish.info.
We have been able to create some really nice, tender, sacred space, even online, even in a virtual world. We're trying to kind of spread the message of hope, not only in the story of resurrection, but also in the rebirth of spring, and the hope of vaccinations and maybe a little return to normalcy.
After a year of what Reverend Erica calls Good Friday energy, Arlington churches are committed to celebrating Easter as a sign of hope as we turn the corner into spring. For ACMi News, I'm Isabella Turst.
Thanks, Isabel. Now let's turn it over to our ponderscope crew for what's happening at Arlington High School.
Welcome back to the ponderscope, your Arlington youth news, updates, and more. And welcome to the new ACMi Studio B, located in Arlington High School. The AHS Asian American Coalition and the Class of 2023 Student Council have organized a rally to discuss the recent hate crimes against Asian Americans and what we can do to combat racism in the Arlington community and beyond. This rally will take place at Robbins Farm Park on Saturday, April 3rd at 2 p.m. Any students who plan to attend are expected to follow COVID-19 protocols, so be sure to bring your mask. In other news, there will be a collaborative concert on Friday, April 9th at 7 p.m., highlighting instrumentalists, music tech projects, and choral pieces. The recital will be held on Zoom, but can also be streamed on ACMi. After 3 long months, Arlington's favorite Kickstand Cafe has finally reopened. You can order in person or online from the link below for takeout and outdoor seating. Their new hours are Wednesday and Thursday from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Also, just a quick reminder that Term 3 ends on April 13th. I'm Jasper Zelmer, and that's all for this week's ponderscope. Now over to Nick for the sports update.
Welcome back, everybody, to yet another edition of the ACMi Sports Update. The weather is heating up, and so is the sports action here in Arlington. Last Saturday, football returned to Pierce Field for the first time in a year and a half, as the Spy Ponders hosted Lexington in Arlington's first home game of the season. The Spy Ponders struggled early, going down 14-0 after the first 3 quarters of play. In the fourth quarter, however, the Spy Ponders stormed back down the field to bring the game within reach with this touchdown pass by senior captain Henry Burns.
3rd and 2. Takes the snap, looks to his left, pump fake, caught! And he's in for the touchdown!
Spy Ponders got a chance to tie the game thanks to a sack on a punt attempt by the Minutemen. But unfortunately for the Spy Ponders, Lexington was able to hold off Arlington with this 4th down stop at the end of the fourth quarter, ending the game with a loss for the Arlington Spy Ponders by a score of 14-7.
Takes the snap. Lexington brings the heat. Burns airs it out, and it's incomplete. Deflected away.
Next, we'll head to the pool where the girls' varsity swim team hosted Lexington this past Tuesday. The girls were able to win a competitive bout by a score of 87-83, winning their 3rd meet of the season to stay undefeated on the year. Now let's head to the track where the boys and girls varsity indoor squads were in action against Lexington. Unfortunately, both teams lost. The boys by a score of 79-21, and the girls by a score of 78.5 to 21.5. Now with this past week behind us, let's jump ahead to next week's matchups. Football hits the road this Saturday for an early morning matchup with the Winchester Sachems at 10 a.m. Girls volleyball is at home this Saturday facing off against Winchester at 12 p.m. And last but not least, indoor track meets early for a matchup with Winchester at 8 a.m. this Saturday. And that's a wrap on this week's action. Make sure to head over to ACMi Sports on YouTube where you can catch select home varsity games live. From ACMi Sports, my name is Nick Antonakis. We'll see you back here next week.
That's all that we have for today. Thank you for tuning into this week's newscast. For everyone here at ACMi News, I'm In-Young Kim, and we'll see you next time.
You can always check out our latest segments and newscasts on the web at acmi.tv/news. And don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ACMi News. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. You'll find us at youtube.com/ACMi News. If you have any news tips for us or wish to become a citizen journalist, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at news@acmi.tv or stop by ACMI Studio A at 85 Park Avenue.